Hello everybody and welcome to another lesson on sound isolation, soundproofing. Today we are going to be talking about a basement studio that I did for a client, and he is an electric guitar aficionado. He has a lot of electric guitars and a lot of amps, and he wanted to be able to play his guitars and even a drum set and have like hangouts and band rehearsals and things like that in his basement and play as loud as he wanted without disturbing his wife upstairs and the rest of his family. And the goal was, hey, can I be jamming out downstairs and have my wife upstairs watching TV and she won't be disturbed at all? And I said, yes, we can do that. And here's how we did it today. I'm going to show you exactly what we went through to create this amazing oasis sanctuary in his basement for not only playing music but also for hosting guests, and it's a multi-purpose room, and I think you guys will get a ton out of it as I teach you and go through the model and some of the plans today. My name is Wilson Harwood. I am a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee, and I am here to teach you as much as I can about what we do at our firm, Soundproof Your Studio, as well as teaching you how to build soundproof rooms so you can build them like the pros. If you are on this journey, definitely check out my free soundproofing workshop. It is 45 minutes of in-depth teaching going over how to build a soundproof space in your basement, your garage, or in your backyard. I go over all three different spaces and what to look out for. To watch that, you can go to soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop and watch it right away. All right, let's dive into this lesson on how to create a professional soundproof room in your basement so you can play guitars as loud as you please. All right, so here we have the model for this basement studio. And, we don't have a ton in here. This basement studio is going to be both a studio on this part of the room. So he'll have his guitars, his desk right here. He'll have a bunch of like a drum kit possibly over here. And on this end, there'll be more sofas, and they've got these custom built-in cabinets, which are going to be really, really awesome for just hosting people, watching TV, watching movies, whatever he wants to do. And then like a little nook back here. There'll be a little place here for a mini bar type of deal. So this is much more than just a studio. This is a great example of how we are designing spaces in people's homes that are both sound isolated but also work as a really beautiful room. The only custom acoustics we really did was this soffit up here, and we have some down lighting, and then we have some GIK acoustics for bass trapping in the corners. So it's very light on the acoustic treatment right now, and that is intentional to allow for the interior designer to have some more freedom in how they want to design the room. So this project is with one of our clients who has a full team. So they have an interior designer, they have an architect, and then we also worked with a mechanical engineer underneath the architect to help with the HVAC design. So this is a really great example as well of how we can work with a full team of people, and I will be, the soundproofing acoustician expert, and I'll work alongside other professionals, including the acoustician, the designer, the interior designer, and then also the mechanical engineer, and just help them through the acoustics of the design. So I just wanted to say all that because this was a really cool project where I got to work with a lot of other what we call allied trades in the field. So this is the plan view. Just to give you guys an idea, we have a concrete masonry wall around the outside, concrete slab at the beginning, which is what I love on the floors. We've got a little bit of a double wall system right here, and you might be like, oh my God, there's a triple leaf effect. Yeah, there is a little bit of that going on right here. It's not terrible, but there is one existing wall right here. And then one of the really tricky parts about this design that I want to show you is we had an existing I-beam. And to get the room where the size we wanted, we really needed to build the wall underneath the I-beam, which led to, countless design challenges with the isolation. And so I'll explain what we did with that. For the most part, the design is somewhat simple on the walls. It's just 2 layers of drywall all the way around, a double wall system over here, and you can see the 2 layers of drywall here, and then 2 layers of drywall on the inside. We've got some sway bracing clips. I like to use these Genie clips for sway bracing. And then you'll notice these weird little things poking out every 10 feet or so. And those are going to be my fire stops, which I'll talk about a little bit later here as we dig into this design more. We like to put in, our outlets. Blue means isolated grounds, white means regular, and I'll talk more about that. Very simple design here, just running some Ethernet for internet and some power for the like charging your phone or a lamp, and then power in the blue for any sort of actual audio related power. So in essence, this is a somewhat simple design, but it was really challenging in terms of the HVAC, the beam, and also getting great isolation on the ceiling. So let me show you a little bit of the plans over here real quick. So if we look at this first floor page plan, we can see that we're using the ISOStore HDLF doors. We're going to do 2 of them. This one's going to be really cool because it's hidden behind a moving bookshelf case, like a hidden bookshelf door plus our isolation door, and that'll just make it so you have continuous shelving here. It is very cool. You can see our return baffle box right here, size very large for such a large system. We're also incorporating into we're running a brand new HVAC system for this room, plus also the gym and the workout room as well. You can see sort of the south, the east, the north, and the west sections here, giving you an idea of just the overall layout of this design. Again, right here, you can see we have the baffle box. It's a large baffle box system. We're using the Alex McVeigh acoustic clouds. He builds them custom here in Nashville, and then we ship them all over the United States and potentially the world to our clients. And that's been a really awesome partnership. So here you can see another view. We do just a perspective view here. And then you can see that we're talking about the different wall sections here. So our north wall isolation has the CMU exterior siding and then the 1-inch air gap. Then a 2x4 stud wall, 24 inches on center with fiberglass bat insulation. We don't ever spec a rock wall unless the client absolutely wants it. It's not necessary. And then we do 2 layers of 5/8 inch Type X drywall. These days, I'm actually moving towards using 1 layer of 3/4 inch or 23/32 OSB, and then the drywall just for ease of hanging acoustic panels on the wall. See our ceiling plan, and this is actually one of the perspectives from the plan. This is the acoustic cloud panel that we're hanging across the ceiling, so you can see a section view of the acoustic cloud. But what I want you to focus on here is just the ceiling plan that we decided to use. So we're using the hush frame raft system on this exact plan. I am sort of moving to a different system moving forward just because I like the Genie clip RSTs better. But at the time of this design, we were still using the hush frame rafts. Again, nothing wrong with them. You just got to be careful as you design with them. Make sure you are following the load sheet carefully and that you make sure your team is installing them correctly. So hush frame rafts, we're going to keep them on a very, very, very tight pattern because we're holding such a heavy load. And then we got our 1x3 furring channel here, and then 4 layers of drywall on the ceiling. That is the real kicker. And we're actually doing OSB first and then 3 layers of drywall. The reason for the OSB, again, is to attach the ceiling clouds more easily. Allows you a little more play in terms of what you can grab into. Ideally, I do like to try to get my ceiling clouds into the 1x3 furring channel just to give it the most strength. But if you had a couple wires or something that you're hanging from go into the OSB, it's a bonus not to have to put drywall anchors or anything like that, especially with these really heavy clouds that we're installing here. So that's a good section of the ceiling. Let me show you a couple other perspectives of the ceiling. Here's another great section that shows how the ceiling interacts with our concrete wall here. So we're going to have the 4 layers of sheetboard material, so OSB, and then the 3 layers of drywall. This right here represents the backer rod and acoustic sealant. So with each layer, we're putting a piece of backer rod and acoustic sealant just to make sure that this is super airtight. And then we have our CMU wall right here. So the ceiling actually goes over our interior wall. And this is a new design that I've been working with the last year. And I like it a lot because it creates a perfect airtight seal so sound can't come down behind our wall. Whereas if you stopped your ceiling here, then sound could still come in behind the wall. And as you can see, this allows for that greater use of different layers. So like we have a stronger isolation in our ceiling than on our walls because we don't need them to match perfectly. This little piece right here represents backer rod and acoustic sealant as well that goes around the perimeter. And I always leave a 1/4 inch gap between the top plate of my inner wall and the finished ceiling layers above. Here is just another look at the backer rod from the top. So you can see our hush frame rafts, 1x3 furring channel, and then the OSB, and then the space right there between the finished ceiling and the CMU wall. And this is really important for the contractors to know, because if we were to actually attach the actual ceiling sheetboard layers to the CMU wall, it would completely circumvent all of the hard work we're doing to isolate the ceiling. So this is a small but very crucial part of the design. Now at the I-beam, things get really, really tricky and funky, and this is where we want the ceiling layers to hit the I-beam, as you can see here, and then also hit the top plates of our 2x4 wall. So you can see here that this is one of those unique situations where, you know, the I-beam throws off what otherwise would have been a very, you know, somewhat simple design. And this is what happens a lot with people I find in these projects, is that they don't think through these kind of, you know, more nuanced aspects of the design, and that can get you really messed up on the project site when you're actually building. Another unique thing I created here was a backer box it's an ISO box, and you can actually buy one of these from the ISO store if you don't want to build it yourself. I made this one custom because I wanted it to, one, fit in the space I had for it between the I joists here, and also I just want to make sure it had as much isolation as I could. Essentially, it's just a big old box with a bunch of insulation in it. And let me give you a good cut section so you can see that. So you can see the J box under here where that isolation would go for our track lighting. So this is one option. You might not need this if you can run the actual metal corrugated wire through the ceiling and down to your actual track lighting, but I created this just in case they needed it. So here's a great section of this ISO box. So you can see we have the extension J box down in here. It goes into our ceiling, and then it's wrapped around all of this drywall right here. And then this represents just like some pink fiberglass insulation or rock wool, whatever you want to use, and then some putty pads around the top here. So a super, super isolated section, because I just wanted absolutely no penetrations in the ceiling if I could get away with it. For that level of isolation we're looking between the basement and the floor above. Something that you often need to do with these plans is put in some blocking for the hush frame rafts or your Genie clips, just so that the furring channel can go close to the edge of the ceiling. You don't want to have a big gap between the edge of your ceiling and the last place that the ceiling was screwed into the furring channel, just because it could potentially sag. So here you can see that I've created some blocking throughout the whole design across the ceiling here. This just lets the contractor know, hey, this is a unique sort of strange thing that we're going to do here, just so you know that's what's going on. And I think it really helps clarify something that otherwise might not be obvious in the plans. All right, so now I want to talk about the walls, and especially this detail around the ceiling, the I-beam. So here's that I-beam I was talking about. And what we need to do is, this is actually showing the drywall on the exterior of this exterior wall, and it needs to cover the I-beam. So if we had just left this I-beam open here, that would be a large gap where sound could get in through the exterior wall. So this is an example of kind of one of those weird sections, and I'll show you kind of from this other side here, where I have to show the contractor exactly how we're going to like seal up around the I-beam and make sure that that thing is absolutely airtight. And you can see how this level of detail is not really common in most construction projects, which is why it's good to diagram these things out ahead of time so you don't have to figure it out in the field. Here's another view that's really helpful. We do, probably over design in some ways. We actually build out these studios perfectly, showing every piece of wood and framing. But a lot of times that's really helpful because we want to show all these different perspectives. And what I want to show you guys here is one that we're trying to, as much as possible, have a staggered stud design when we have double walls. So even if the studs aren't perfectly offset from each other, as long as they're not perfectly in line with each other, that's what we're looking for to help improve the isolation. That we've got fire stops right here, we've got fire stops here, and there's some different sizes, but basically what we're doing, if we zoom in, you can see here in this zoomed in view that we've got an IB1 clip, an IB3 clip, or this is actually a Genie clip L bracket that you can buy from the ISO store. And then we have some rock wool over here to separate the 1/2-inch drywall that's working as a fire stop. The importance of the fire stop is that if you had any sort of fire that built up in between the bays in your double wall system, what we want to do according to international code is put a fire stop every 10 feet. So what this does is it stops fire from spreading rapidly left and right inside of our wall cavity. And this is something that I've started doing again more recently in our designs. And we always put fire stops at the top of our walls, but now we're also putting fire stops vertically to stop horizontal fire. So we're stopping both vertical fire up into our ceiling from our wall cavity, and we also want to stop fire that goes left and right. And this is one of many different designs I've come up with over the years to create a fire stopping system that is also still sound isolated. Another thing that a lot of people don't think about is sway bracing. And there are ideas that, some contractors and designers might not use sway bracing, but I like to use these Genie clip brackets again, these L brackets, because they hold the top of the wall in place. So when you build this wall, you can't attach the top of this wall to your exterior framing of your house. There's just no way that you can attach it and still have it be soundproof. The only place it's attached is to the concrete slab. So I use these L brackets every 48 inches on center to support my wall. In this case, you can see it's supported into the CMU wall, but you can also have it attached, as I did here, into a secondary stud wall on the other side if you're doing a double stud wall. So what that's doing is just supporting the sway of the wall from swaying back and forth. This is especially important at our doorways. Here's an interesting example of using the sway bracing both at the midpoint and the top of the header of our door on both sides. And that just helps, when you have a 340-pound door, as we do in this case, from the door swaying and hitting the wall and causing it to move as you open and close the door. Another interesting aspect of our wall designs that I want to point out is that we like to key our drywall layers, and this helps it so sound can't get through as easily. The way to key a drywall layer is simply to put the first layer on first, and then before you add in the second layer, you just put them in the same order and you put your second layer on, and it will create this keyed effect. This can also be done if you're interlocking your ceiling layers, but as you saw earlier, we actually don't interlock our ceiling layers on these designs when we're doing a floating ceiling off of acoustic clips. We only would key our ceiling layers with our wall layers if we're doing a truly independently framed ceiling. So I'm going to end this video here. As you can see, there is a ton of information that goes into how to build a professional level soundproof studio. If you are interested in watching more of this set of plans, I'm probably going to make a part 2, maybe even a part 3 series on this because it was such a complex build and design. And for those of you who are interested in potentially working together, I do offer these services to those of you who want some help, who are looking for expert opinions, advice, guidance on your project. If that's you, sign up for a free Soundproof Clarity call. It's 30 minutes, totally free. I just give you my time because I want to meet those of you out here who are serious about building your studio right the first time. To do that, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com and click on the I want some construction plans button, and you can sign up on my calendar right away. For those of you who might not be ready for that, who are still in that DIY range, don't worry, I still have that free soundproofing workshop for you. It's 30 minutes of in-depth teaching going over how to build a studio in a backyard, a basement, or in a garage. To watch that, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop, and you can watch that right away. Again, I'm Wilson Harwood. I am a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee, and I look forward to seeing you next week with more information on soundproofing and room acoustics. All right, see y'all later.